What is going on, YouTube? Got another custom for you today, and today I am making a 1971 Plymouth Road Runner. Oh yeah, you guys know how much I love these Road Runners. Quite a bit different body style than the 70 Plymouth Road Runner. A lot more aerodynamic, which is what Chrysler was going for back in the day at that time, and was going to help them on the high-speed tracks in NASCAR. So, speaking of which, I think that's exactly what we're going to do, is make this into a cool-looking NASCAR. At least that's the plan anyway. So, first things first, let's take it apart. I've already drilled out the posts. Let's see what we are working with. Clear windshield. I think I have a way of tinting these. I probably won't do it on this custom, but maybe in the future I'll play around with trying to tint those windows. And just a plastic base. Now we can just pop those wheels right out. We've got it all taken apart. Hopefully by the time this thing is all complete, it'll look like royalty, and maybe it'll be fit for a king. Let's go get that yellow paint off and start working on this thing. So before I go to town with the citrus strip on here, I'm going to go sand it, put a pretty good scuff on it. These new Hot Wheels have a pretty solid clear coat on them that takes a while for the citrus strip to break down. So, a quick little sand to break down that clear coat, and then we'll be in business. I wish I was doing this series when these were in the stores. This is part of the Mopar series that came out last year. And these, particular, the 71 Plymouth Road Runners, were peg warmers in my area. They were all over the place. And you know what? I picked up one to complete the set, not thinking much about it. I didn't really think I was going to customize them, so I didn't pick up more. I had an opportunity to pick up quite a few. Every time I'd go into my local stores, you'd see these all over the place. So, when it came time for this series, and I did a little research and found out how much these Road Runners actually participated in NASCAR, I went to the stores and looked for them, and lo and behold, none were to be found. Imagine that. So unfortunately, I had to pick up a few of these at eBay, but I was able to find them, get them, and hopefully I have 3 of them total. So this is the first one. I'll probably be making all 3 into a couple customs eventually. But right now, we're just dealing with this. Wow, well, check that out. It destroyed that tempo, didn't it? Alright, that's looking pretty good. Nice heavy coat on there. We'll let that sit for a while, let the citrus strip do its job, and we'll come back when it's time to get all that paint off there. Oh yeah, it's looking like the citrus strip did a heck of a job. And that paint is just flying off there. I probably let this sit for about 20-30 minutes before it started looking like this, and came off pretty easy. Time to run that under some warm water, go over it with soap and a steel wool brush, and we'll be ready to put some primer on this. We got the Krylon Cover Max white primer on there. Stuff goes on really well. I really like it. And we are ready for some paint. So after some exhaustive research on the internet, probably like 2 minutes worth of research on the internet, I found that Tamiya light blue is the closest match to petty blue, short of going and having somebody mix the colors for you and put it in a spray can. So we're going to put it to the test, see if they're right, and this is the color we're going for. And if you haven't guessed already, we're going for a Richard Petty 71 Plymouth Road Runner here. So let's get this stuff on there and see how it turns out. Well, I'm not sure if it's petty blue, but I think it is pretty dang close. And it came out looking really, really good. I think it's time to start putting some decals on this thing. All right, let's get these decals on here. So a little tip, what I started doing was cutting off a little piece. It's just not a decal, not anything, just a piece of the paper that it's on. And I'll stick it on there. And this way you can find out kind of what kind of decal you're working with. If it's thin, if it's thick, if it's going to fall apart in the water. So let that sit there for a little while, and then you can remove the backing and see what kind of decal you're working with. That way you don't cut out one of the decals you want on your car and go to find out that it's super thin or that it just falls apart in the water, and you end up not wasting a decal. So one way to try and figure out what you're dealing with here. So for this, it just comes off, and these are fairly thin, so it's good to know. I'm gonna have to be real careful when I place them down, because you can see right here, probably not gonna be able to move them around a whole lot because they're so thin. Now I know, and I didn't waste any major decals that would ruin the car. So, little tip. As usual, I'm using some decals that I got off of eBay, and the seller is RWNEFF1. I will put a link in the description down below so you guys can go check out some of the decals that he sells. So how did Richard Petty come up with this petty blue paint color that has been so identifiable with petty racing over the years? Well, back in 1958 or 1959, Richard and his brother were in the garage working on his dad's old Plymouth when they realized they didn't have enough white paint to completely paint the car. So Richard had some navy blue paint laying around, added it to the white paint, and sprayed the car. Once it dried, it came out looking something similar to this. And fortunately, Richard's dad, Lee Petty, who was also the first winner of the Daytona 500, loved the color, patented it, and from then on would be on every single one of their petty racing cars. So that's how they got their iconic petty blue color. But what about the number 43? Every time you see a race car with number 43 on it, you got to think Richard Petty. Well, his dad raced, and his car number was number 42. So Richard decided, I guess the next best thing other than 42 is 43. It comes after 42, so might as well go with 43. And it's just as simple as that. Unfortunately, I don't have 2 hours to share every story about Richard Petty, but what I will say is 200 wins, 712 top 10s, 123 poles, 7 NASCAR championships, and 7 wins at Daytona. All right, it is time to put this back together. I went ahead and painted the base to match the body of the car. I think it turned out pretty well. This blue is, I would say, pretty close to the petty blue, but we'll see a little bit further here in a second when we get it all together and see how it all came together. I also painted the interior. Nice little silver color. I think that goes with the blue pretty well. There we go. All the screws are in. All right, time for the moment of truth. Let's see what it looks like. Oh yeah, check that out. Holy cow. That is pretty sweet, if I do say so myself. I really like the blue. The grill actually came out pretty well too. And yeah, Richard Petty number 43. Looking good. That metallic paint and the blue look really good together, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Very cool. Hopefully did the king proud. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. This paint scheme is loosely based off of a paint scheme that he ran in the 70s. He also had another paint scheme that was red and blue, and it actually had the STP red along with the Petty blue, which is a very cool paint scheme that I may do in a future build. But for this one, I just wanted to go with the Petty blue and see how it turned out, and I really like it. Some of you may be asking, how come I didn't do the Petty car as a Plymouth Superbird? Superbird and Petty are almost synonymous with each other. Well, he was actually driving this car when he earned his $1,000,000th from his NASCAR winnings. So I thought it was pretty fitting to go with the Road Runner on this build, and I like it. Maybe there'll be a Petty Superbird coming down the road, but we will see. Petty actually did really well in the 70s driving a Road Runner. He won the championship in 1971, 72, and 74, all behind the wheel of a Road Runner. So there you go, the Richard Petty 1971 Plymouth Road Runner. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and we will see you on the next one.